Hello, everyone.
Hey.
Mute yourself, please. Thank you. Wait, no, mute yourself on your camera or laptop.
It is muted.
No, it's not. I'm looking at it. No, your microphone.
Oh, the actual. Okay.
It's just really
okay. As I was like, how am I going to be able to hear?
Technical stuff right here. Mm-hmm. How is everybody doing today? Hope you're all doing well. I'm Matt. That is Dom.
I haven't had to do this because I haven't had you in the past couple of weeks, Matt. So this is
a wicked echo. Why do I hear a wicked echo? Maybe I don't know what it is. Whatever. It's not that big of a deal. I'm probably just going to mute this when I'm not talking anyway. Okay. No, we're back. I took a couple of weeks. Actually, no, I didn't take it. What was last week? Last week was a holiday.
Last week was Memorial
Day. Yeah. I was watching from the couch.
Thank you.
Just real sicko behavior. When I'm not even here to do the show,
well, it just means
you're sitting on my couch and watching you do the show. And I thought about too, like texting Julia and being like, "Oh, do you want me to pop on for a block?" Like that was a serious thought I had in my head. Should I pop on for a block? I did comment. Yeah, I did. I was trying to, get a little momentum. There wasn't a lot of comments. I was trying to be like, hey, take this and run with it.
In all fairness, our friends Dan Page and Jenna Cottrell and I had a great time. It was a great discussion.
Lori.
And we had a lot of fun.
Yes, they did. Hello. Good evening, Lori. Good evening, Julie. Hello. How are y'all doing tonight? We appreciate it. I see Elena Getzenberg is backstage. Let's go. Elena, we will pop you on TV in probably like a minute or two, and then we'll go from there. Just getting the thumbs up. So, yeah. We're back. We're back tomorrow. So everybody, this is the final week of voluntary workouts for the Bills. Then mandatory minicamp is next week, a couple days there. They're scheduled for 3 days of mandatory minicamp, but they usually, last year they didn't. I was going to say.
Last year they did. They did 3 weeks of media availability. So we got one Tuesday for 3 weeks leading up to mandatory minicamp.
Lori is watching. Julie is watching. We appreciate all of you joining us. We'll answer some questions. Do we have to talk about the wedding? We got to talk about the wedding.
People are probably going to ask us about the wedding. It's probably going to come up. Right? It's probably going to come up.
I'll tell the story on TV. I was there.
Wow, good for you. That's why.
Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Leading the Charge. I am 7 Sports Director Matt Bovee, joined by 7 Sports reporter Dom Tibbetts. We will be joined momentarily by ESPN's Elena Getzenberg. We're here to talk all things Bills as we get ready to wrap up the final week of voluntary workouts, and then it's time for mandatory minicamp. It's funny because you think things are going to be quiet.
Right.
They're not.
Never.
But they will be in about a week and a half when they literally do nothing until training camp.
That is, I always tell people, it's like, you go to the off season, kind of like when March hits and like the Super Bowl has all kind of quieted down and you really feel like, oh, it's a lull, but you're getting ready for the draft. So there's always a talk and there's always about free agency, the off season moves. Truly that mid-June to late July stretch is just so quiet. It's where everybody tries to go on vacation. You don't really hear much. Guys are not active on social media doing anything. They're getting rest and relaxation. It is truly going to come quicker than we think. But it is the quietest period of the whole entire NFL season.
Yeah, maybe Elena will take some time off. Hi, Elena. She's going to pop in right now. How are you? Thank you so much for joining us. You got any time off planned?
Hello. Yes, I do. I'm going to Europe for a little bit, which will be fun. But
that's such a massive – that's not a small thing.
So that'll be fun. But also echoing that got an email about training camp credentials today, which made it feel our summer is very limited. So it's a very, very small window when there's not football things happening. So we got to enjoy it while you can.
Elena, I wanted to start. This is actually a conversation that we were having during the press box or in the press box of the Bandits game. Do you remember what we were talking about? Not the Josh Allen wedding. Do you remember what we were talking about? The question that I had posed to you.
No, I don't, because I only remember our Josh Allen wedding conversation. So
we can get to that if you want to. The question we were talking about was, is this the most talented roster the Bills have had during the Sean McDermott and Josh Allen era? And I feel like that's a good starting point for us to kind of get through this next little bit here. What do you think? How good is this roster?
Yes, I do remember discussing that now. I think it's up there. I think we had the conversation about that 2021 team, which was the first team that I covered of the Bills, which I think was a very talented Bills team as well in a different way. But I think, do you know why the conversation is up there almost for this team this year for me is because Josh Allen's talent level is at a different place than it was before. And I would argue that like, because the rest of the team is also very good, if you've got a really, really, really good Josh Allen that elevates the team around him. I have question marks about this wide receiver room still. I know that's like a touchy subject sometimes, but I think that they're good, but are they like very, very good? I think that's, there's question marks there. I think they can be good enough. Right. So I think it's up there. I'm not like convinced as we're sitting here today that like, yes, this is the most talented or anything like that. But I think it's up there in the conversation.
Real quick. So let me ask you, you said you still have questions about the wide receiver room, which I totally understand because I feel the same way. But doesn't last year give us reason to believe that they can make it? Because I think the wide receiver room this year is better than it was last year.
I agree with that, I think. And yes, I think, and that's what Brandon Beane, when he shared his thoughts on wide receiver conversation, kind of went back to that Josh Allen was MVP. It was enough. And they played, the offense set records. It was such a year, but you're not going to have years like that every year where like, Josh Allen might throw more interceptions this year, or there might be stuff that can happen with the offense that like, you're going to have to rely on these wide receivers a little bit more. So for me, I think it's, yes, the offense showed that last year, but also teams are going to learn how to defend this Bills team differently. And you might need to rely on these wide receivers in a different way than last year. And there's just that unknown to me is something that like, yes, it worked last year. Let's see how it goes this year. And then it'll be like more confirmation of that, but you're not going to have a historic season every season, right? Like that's not, they could, and then we'll replay this and I'll look foolish. But, I don't think you can rely on Josh Allen having the level of success he had game after game after game. Like you at some point, like your wide receiver room is still important and it could be enough. And it's, we could see it similar to last year, but I just want to see how this group looks when they get on the field.
All right. So off of that too, Elena, I just have to ask, so many position groups, you bring up the wide receiver. What is the one position group maybe on this roster you look at where you feel like there's solidity? You don't have any concerns and you feel like this is maybe that best unit that's coming back to this team this upcoming season.
Do I get to pick quarterback? Is that an option?
No, you do not get to pick quarterback.
It was so easy. I'll go for the offensive line then. I think it's a really big deal that they're returning the same starting five. I thought they had a very impressive season last year, both in run blocking and obviously protecting Josh. It was the fewest sacks of his career, which is, of course, a credit to him as well. But I think it's so important that they're all coming back. They played so well last year. I think Connor McGovern obviously filled in really well at center. That worked. So I think seeing more of that is so important for this offense. It was James Cook had a great season, but does he have that good of a season without the offensive line? No. So I think like getting that group back to me it was paramount. And we knew like to go into the offseason knowing that starting five was coming back was huge. So I think that to me is the group.
Elena, who is the player that we're not talking about who can make a substantial impact this season? There's so many different ways you can go with this question.
I think I want to go in the direction of like Dalton Kincaid. And I know we talk about him a lot. Sure. So like maybe that doesn't quite answer your question, but I think like I'm going to take it in the sense that we're talking about him, but I think his impact could be so high, or like if he does not take the step forward that they need him to, that will be a big deal because they traded up for this guy in the first round. We have not seen him, injuries or for whatever reason, put together a complete season. And like, I think if he like takes a step forward, we're talking about the offense last year. This offense will be on like a whole another level. I think I think that would be huge for this offense, for Josh. So if he can like take that step, like I think it would be so big that it would impact the offense in such a way. And then if it doesn't go well, you've got this guy entering the final year of his rookie deal, a first round pick, another first round pick, potentially not working out. And to me, that like we're going to be having some conversations about like how these first round picks are going.
And then I got to think too, just in terms of guys that you feel like, and this conversation probably ramps up more, Elena, as we get into actual training camp, when we start seeing these guys at full speed. Is there somebody that kind of comes right to your mind as somebody who you need to see have a big year, who the Bills need to have a big year and elevate themselves from even not just like a year 1 to year 2 rookie, but just from what we saw last season up until now?
I kind of, and I don't know if this is like a weird one to go with since he just signed an extension, but I kind of want to see that from Greg Rousseau. I think we've seen him have like really solid years, really good years, like steps forward he's taken, like where it's been like, oh, that's better than last year and he's improving and all of that. But they invested a lot of money in Greg Rousseau this offseason and want him to be a part of their future. And we've seen how important that pass rush is and needs to be. And Joey Bosa is already dealing with an injury. You know, the rest of that group's got question marks, suspensions. So to me, can he take that similar to Dalton, but in a different way because they've already invested in Greg. They kind of need him to take that step forward. And then, like, again, he's shown us good things. We know he can be solid, but can he be like the number one pass rusher who can get double-digit sacks and like make that kind of impact? We haven't really seen that yet. And again, they paid him. So you kind of, if he can do that or if he can't, will be, I think, really, really big for this defense.
I'm surprised they did. I guess the number that they got him at wasn't crazy. It was lower than I thought it was going to be, which is why they were probably able to keep him. But I was a little bit surprised. I thought of the guys that they were going to re-sign, he might be the least likely to get a new deal, just because we haven't seen that yet. We haven't seen the explosion. That's a player that you were paying to get double-digit sacks consistently, and he hasn't gotten there yet.
Yeah, and if he can, or like I do think like how many times have we talked about like they showed us in the draft how they felt this defense did last year. Like there's not a lot of question marks there. We know they were unhappy with how that group went, especially the defensive line. So I agree. I think it was, of course, the value they were able to get him at that led to it. But I don't know if I would have done it. I'm not Brandon Beane, and he knows so much more than I do about like the ins and outs and the money and all that. But I kind of am with you where like, it's a tough one because he hasn't shown us he can be that guy season after season. So that's why I think if he can do that this year, that's huge. But it was an interesting extension. And I get it because he's solid, right? Like, you know, you're going to get a certain level of production. It's just if he can do that next step that I think is what we don't know yet.
Man, to be paid that much money to be solid would be really, really nice.
Very.
All right, we are going to take a quick break on the television side of things. We're going to continue the conversation during the commercial break, and we'll be back on TV in just a couple minutes. Elena, do you want this question from Scott here? Would you bring back Poyer as a practice squad role? This is basically the Micah Hyde question all over again. Elena, you can answer first.
No.
I wouldn't either. No,
I don't think that no, because I'd rather actually have someone who I can develop as a safety because there's so many question marks still at safety for the future. So while it'd be nice, like I think Micah came back very much so with an understanding that like I'm going to help out. And I don't know if Jordan Poyer is at that point of his career yet. And he has a very different personality than Micah Hyde. So
yeah,
I don't know if he would lend himself to that kind of role.
Yeah, Micah Hyde could have just kind of naturally fit into the role that they ended up giving him. I don't know if that was the plan when they brought him back. It probably just didn't have much gas left in the tank, and they were like, all right, well, you're here now. You can just basically be a player coach. But I just don't see that happening with Poyer.
No, not with Poyer. I think Hyde's role was perfect for what they needed. It almost just felt like he was a morale boost in the locker room. Like, hey, if you feel like the Bills are going to make a run, which, you know, we talked at the beginning of last year, that we didn't think the Bills were going to be at that point they were last year. So I always just thought from Bills' perspective, if you're in that locker room, Micah Hyde comes in and you're just like, hey, that's a guy who's been here from the beginning, good relationship with guys like Josh who have been here kind of since they've kind of taken this rise to the team that they are now. Bring Micah in, good for morale, good for the locker room. It's really it. And I don't think you get that in the slightest with Jordan Poyer. I think sometimes whole things got to die, you know?
Well, here's the question. It's from Joe. We're getting letting talk. Was Gabe Davis being at Josh Allen's wedding a sign that he might be brought back by the Bills?
Confirmed.
I love that we have a natural way of getting to this, especially while Elena is still on the show. Joe, I will lead off this one. I don't think there's any chance Gabe Davis is back with the Buffalo Bills, but I think he was there because him and Josh are boys. Like, they've been friends for several years. He played a 4-year contract with the Bills completely while Josh Allen was there. That's a long time to be with somebody, like a quarterback and a wide receiver. I don't think this means anything about the future. No. Elena, what do you think? Oh, no, there's pictures coming up. Oh, here we go. Oh, no.
Did you know Josh Allen got married? Is that something you guys are aware of? I don't know if
I had heard.
We're learning it
from
now.
I will take credit on this lovely program to say what Beauvais and Dom already know, that I predicted that Gabe Davis would be in attendance at this lovely wedding affair, because he and Josh are close. They're friends. They, like Beauvais said, like it was over those 4 years. They
Elena,
bonded,
let me pause you real quick.
Yeah.
We're going to continue. We're coming back on TV. We'll continue this.
That's what the people came to see.
All right, welcome back, everyone. We are talking about the royal wedding this weekend. I mean, Josh Allen and Haley Steinfeld getting married. And we're talking about this because Joe asked a question. We didn't just start talking about this, I promise. But it's a valid question. Was Gabe Davis being at Josh's wedding a sign that he might get brought back for the Bills? 2 weeks ago, Elena and I had this conversation, and we were making the guest list. Josh could have just asked us. We would have did it for him.
Yep.
But you said, to your credit, that Gabe was going to be there. But is this a sign that he's coming back, or it's just, hey, they're buddies?
I have to milk my wedding prediction as much as possible because I was really proud of it. So
it was good. It was good.
It was very good.
Thank you. Appreciate it. No, it doesn't mean that he's coming back to the Bills at all. It just means that him and Josh are friends. Although it would be like fun if like that's how we found out that the Bills were signing different people. Like, are they at social gatherings? Like, that's the clues now, because then do I get to be like an entertainment party reporter? I'm kind of here for that. Send me to parties, ESPN. But no, it's I did not get a wedding invite, so it wasn't. Anyway, no, he's not. This does not mean that at all. It just means that him and Josh are close, although that would be fun. But no, it does not seem that way, that Gabe Davis is heading back to the Bills at the moment.
Even if you're a Bills fan and you go back to like the prime of the Josh and Gabe connection, I go back to obviously the 13-second game is what I think of. Matt, I'm looking at the depth chart right now. Elena, you know it too. Like, where's the room if you want to bring back Gabe? The answer, there is no room.
Yeah.
It's a full room.
Yeah, you would have to think that Gabe is going to bring you more than Elijah. I mean, they're different types of players, but Elijah Moore, who you just gave a decent amount of money to, he's kind of similar to Josh Palmer, not exactly perfect, but like they signed him. They like Josh Palmer. That was the first move that they made in the offseason. Yes. So clearly they believe. But, I mean, Elena, it goes back to the point you made in the last segment. The wide receiver room, there's still some moving pieces.
The only reason I would bring back Gabe Davis if he wants to take, like, a really, really minimal deal and run block. Like, because that's what he's really good at. Mm-hmm. Yes. And sometimes you need a guy to do that. But I don't know. Gabe Davis is still relatively early in his career, and coming back to what probably would serve the Bills best. Like you said, this wide receiver room, while I still think it's a little bit of a question mark about how it'll actually look and like if it's enough, I don't think that like Gabe Davis would change that really. Again, he'd have to take on a role in his that I don't think he wants to take on his career. I'll be fascinated to see what his next step does look like, though, because it didn't work out with Jacksonville. And like, is he healthy? I think that's a question mark. So it'll be interesting to see, but I don't think he fits with this Bills team.
Oh, he is such a giant. He is such a giant. With Brian Dable, he will be on the Giants probably before the end of the month. This is a question from Scott. If the defense can get off the field on third down, this team will be very hard to beat. Well, they were really bad at getting off of the field on third down as a defense last year. And I think that point, you could go a lot of different ways here, right? That points to the defensive line. The defensive line getting to the quarterback makes everybody better. It makes the safeties less of a problem. It makes the cornerbacks better. And Christian Benford's great. Rousseau Douglas slipped a little bit at the end of the season. So it was kind of like just a bunch of things, the dominoes of why they couldn't get off the field on third down. That's got to be a big focus for this team, Elena.
Of course it is. Yeah, but it's also creating, like, I think too often last year. And yes, I remember sitting next to certain members of the press box as like 3rd and long situations got converted time and time again against this defense. And it was like predictable. Like, it'd be like, okay, like, will they do it again? But I also think they need to create more 3rd and short situations this year, 3rd and long situations, excuse me.
Yeah.
Like, do more of that. And I think last year they got into too many situations where they were putting themselves in bad spots for 3rd down, where it was like, okay, it's 3rd and short. Now you're in a tough spot. And again, they gave up too many 3rd and longs this past year, but they have to do a better job on 1st down. I think that was an issue last year that led to some of those 3rd down.
I don't know. I also like Matt's point is like, I think the first problem that you had to address was the defensive line, because it's kind of just trickles to everybody else's success, to your point. The one question I asked you about, or maybe Matt had asked it in the first block, was just about unsurety. Maybe just going back to the safety room, like the DeMar Hamlin with Taylor Rapp, and then like Cole Bishop. Obviously, he's a guy that needs to step up. Elena too. Is like, what's your confidence to concern level just about that group, knowing that their role this year is also needing to be emphasized? You need to see a little bit more, kind of just out of that unit in general.
I think Taylor Rapp to me is one of the underrated players on this Bills defense. I think he actually, like, when he was out there, did okay last year. Like, I didn't think he was an issue, and like I was totally comfortable with him coming back for this defense this year. It's that other spot that I think, if he can stay healthy, that is an issue with Taylor Rapp. He tends to get injured a good amount. But to me, it's can Cole Bishop take that step? Can he become a starter they can rely on consistently? I think they would like him to take that step. That's clear. They want to give him the opportunity to earn that job. Can he? That's one of the biggest things I'm watching in training camp is like, where is Cole Bishop and can he take that next step? And do they trust him to, like, is he going to be with the first team defense when we come out of training camp? I'm not, like, that'll be interesting to see. Or do they want to give DeMar that chance? Like, that battle to me is like one of the things I'm most looking forward to in camp.
Yeah. All right. That's what we're going to talk about coming up on the other side of the break. Elena, thank you so much for joining us. If you're watching on TV, we're going to take a quick break. Elena, we're going to ask you one question during the commercial, so don't leave. All right, Elena. The most underrated ride at Walt Disney World is your final question of the evening.
I didn't prepare for this. Oh no. You said underrated?
Yes. We were talking about Disney before you got on, so this is the perfect segue.
Then I'll go with, I don't know if this counts as underrated, but I'm a big Spaceship Earth girly. I don't know if that
That's
counts.
Great. That's a fantastic answer. That's a fantastic answer
great.
Because I feel like it's one of those rides that always has like a 20-minute wait, but it's so much better than that.
Yeah, I think it smells fantastic. That's like a weird thing to say. It smells really good. It has a great story. You can take a nap on it if you want, or you can just enjoy the lovely tale of innovation and history. And it's one I feel very strongly about. And my mom will tell you that I once slept on that ride for several hours as a young child. So I think that's why it's a part of my heart. So you're welcome.
I absolutely love that. Elena, tell everyone where they can read your work, follow you, see all the stuff that you do for ESPN.
Just on ESPN.com. If you go to NFL, there's a Bills section. All my stuff is there. I'm on, I will always call it Twitter at A Getzenberg. And then sometimes I'll be on ESPN on TV. So you can catch me there as well.
Thank you, Elena. Appreciate you joining us. Appreciate it. Thanks, Elena. See you tomorrow.
Hey, G.
You got a favorite ride?
Oh.
How much? How long? When are we back? 30 seconds. Oh, we're back in 30 seconds. You got a favorite ride?
Ooh, based off of
Tower Terror for me.
I mean, it was is it Fast Track? Is that the car ride in Epcot? Test Track?
Fast Track.
Yeah,
Fast Track.
It's been
a while.
I was 7 years old.
All right, we're going to come back on TV. No more Mickey impersonations. 57 is our out time. Beautiful. All right, welcome back. So we're at a picnic for my wife's work on Friday night, and one of my wife's coworkers, very
you called off?
That's why I wasn't. She was very, very nice, and she kind of tongue-in-cheek was like, "Hey, why aren't you in California for Josh Allen's wedding?" And I think I was just so quick with it that I was convincing. I was like, "Oh yeah, I'm leaving tonight on the red eye. I'll get there later." And she was flabbergasted. She was like, what? And I was like, yeah, just flying out. I'll get there by tonight.
Taking a JetBlue red eye from Buffalo to LAX.
I had to break the news to her like, hey, no, I won't be there.
She's so disappointed.
But she was just like, for those 30 seconds, I had her. I was like, I got you convinced.
What do you think, like, in any aspect? Because one of the things I was thinking of with this wedding is, like, obviously Josh, and I go back, there's a couple guys that I knew from my early start of my career working in Montana who also would go down to Laramie a bunch and cover Wyoming, especially when Josh was coming up, because there's like, hey, in college football in that area, when you get somebody big like this, you go and do it. And he kind of befriended a couple people in the media. Now, he's not Laramie anymore. It's way different. But I'm curious, it's like, how cool would it have been to be in the ground level? Like, you were here his rookie year. Like, imagine if you just like foregone or you weren't working in this media side of things, forewent all ethics, and you're just best friends with Josh Allen. Like, that must be so sick.
Yeah, I mean, he asked me to stand in the wedding, but I said, no, give the spot to somebody else, your brother. He's more deserving of it. But it is cool, and I know that it's something that a lot of people are talking about. So obviously, Bills fans very excited about that.
And obviously, congratulations, Josh and Haley.
Yeah, I mean, of course, it's kind of a big deal. I like this question from Scott. How does the media feel about Hard Knocks being a training camp? It's an interesting question. What do you think?
Love it.
Do you?
Because why not? It makes everything interesting. It ramps up more storylines. It's obviously a way to see another aspect of this team that we don't get to see, because obviously Hard Knocks is going to have probably a little bit more access at training camp than we do, Matt. So you're going to be able to see some of these intricacies that even we don't get to see when we're in St. John Fisher covering this team. I've said this for my whole career of covering really like cool stories and big things. It's like, you can't ever not have enough media from our perspective. It's way different. If I am somebody who plays for the Buffalo Bills, you probably are like, I'm sick of it. But I am team put everybody there. Bring Hard Knocks in there. Bring CBS and NBC every day. Bring us there. The more the merrier, because it's content. That's our job. I see it always from that side.
Yeah, I would say bring Hard Knocks. CBS and NBC can stay away. Let's just keep it with the ABC family.
We're already there. That's why.
Yeah. Well, the one thing I'll say is I am very curious to know how this will impact access, if at all, because I do think Hard Knocks will be such a demand on so many different people's time, right? Like, what they're doing is not quick. They do not put these things together without a ton of resources and a ton of effort. So I just want to make sure that at the local level isn't going to spill out to our coverage, which is ultimately what we are doing for the fan base, right?
Yes.
We are the way to connect, hopefully, the fan base to the team that they love and care about so much. So I'm just hoping that it doesn't have an impact on that. I don't think it will. We have 2 minutes left. Tomorrow is the final day or the final week of voluntary minicamp. Is there any chance that we see James Cook tomorrow?
Not in the slightest.
No chance.
No.
We're going 0% chance.
Zero. If he's not going to show up to the first voluntary workout, why would he show up to the second?
Because we're closer to mandatory minicamp. And if he is going to show up to mandatory minicamp, it's not like he can just come back and then he could theoretically. I feel like there's a better chance that we see him tomorrow than there was that we saw him last week. I still don't think there's a good chance at all, but I think there's a higher chance just because we are closer to mandatory minicamp.
For me, it went from like 0 to 1%.
I just think if you're his agent and you are trying to kind of squash this, you do it now before you even get to mandatory minicamp, because then that's going to be the story regardless. And if you want that to be the story, then you have him show up, and that's the big deal. He's either there or he's not there. But I think doing it a week ahead kind of pushes it to the back burner. Like Stephon Diggs was at OTAs today for the Patriots, right? Last week, that was the big story. Stephon Diggs out in the boat, all that kind of stuff. Then he was there today.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I don't think he's going to be there, but I won't be shocked if he is.
I think you can accomplish all the things you talk about, and you bring up good points, but I think you accomplish that if you just show up for mandatory minicamp, right?
Probably.
I think you're able to kind of temper the flames. You're there for mandatory minicamp, whatever availability we get with him, whatever he says to us, he's there when it's mandatory. It's voluntary at the end of the day. I'm not going to expect him to be there, and I don't think the fan base should, once again, get too caught up in this if he doesn't show up.
Yeah. It's probably a safe bet that he's not going to be there now, but we'll see what happens next week. So for everybody who's watching, they have the final day of availability for us tomorrow, voluntary workouts, then a couple more days of practice this week. Mandatory minicamp begins next week. That is 3 days, and then nothing until training camp, which is in late July. That is Dom Tibbetts. I am Matt Beauvais. Thank you to Elena Getzenberg for joining us. Have a lovely evening. We'll see you guys next week.
See you.
Bye, everybody.
Peace out.
Have a lovely evening.